Alright, so today we're going to be learning about some special right triangles. So we have two different kinds of special right triangles. Our first one that we're going to talk about is a 45, 45, 90. Okay, so when we have a 45, 45, 90, this is going to mean that two of our legs are going to be equal because they are both across from a 45-degree angle. And then our 90-degree angle, our hypotenuse is still always across from that. Okay, so these we call legs. So we can just write a cursive L for that. And then our hypotenuse is going to be the leg times the square root of 2. So we have a leg, and then the leg times the square root of 2. Alright, so the legs of a 45, 45, 90 triangle are always going to be congruent. So if we look down at our first example, so we can see that we have 45 degrees here, which means that we will have 45 degrees over here. This side is 8, so x will also be 8. So y, we just have to look at our rules. Our hypotenuse is going to be equal to our leg times the square root of 2. So y is just going to be 8 times the square root of 2. Alright, so on number 2, it's the same thing. So we have 45 degrees here. We'll have 45 degrees here since we have 90 here. So y is going to be equal to 25, and x is going to be 25 times the square root of 2. So we can also write these in decimal form. So x we would have had 35.4. All right, so what about if we are given the hypotenuse and we need to find the legs? So we know that our hypotenuse is going to be the leg times the square root of 2. So here we have 19. So what we need to do is we have to divide by the square root of 2. So normally when we're trying to find the hypotenuse, we're going to multiply. So think of it as the opposite. We need to divide by the square root of 2. So when we learn from our simplifying radicals practice, we can't have a square root in the bottom of, or in our denominator. So we have to multiply the top and the bottom times the square root of 2. Okay, so anytime we have a square root times the square root, that's just going to be our number. So we have 2. So this is going to be 19 times the square root of 2 over 2. And that is actually going to be our answer. So we can write 19 times the square root of 2 divided by 2, or we could also write it as 13.4. All right, then we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So these are going to be a little bit different, but still just some rules that you need to know. So when we have a 30, 60, 90, our shorter side is always going to be opposite the 30-degree angle. We're just going to call that S. All right, so this is S. Our longer leg is going to be S times the square root of 3. And our hypotenuse is always going to be 2 times S. All right, then we always know the shorter leg is always opposite the 30-degree angle, and the longer leg is always opposite the 60-degree angle. Hypotenuse will always be opposite the 90-degree angle. All right, so we'll do number 4. So number 4, we have our shorter leg as 5, because this is going to be 30. Okay, so our hypotenuse is always 2 times our shorter leg. So our hypotenuse y will be 10, and our longer leg is always our shortest side times the square root of 3. So we have 5 times the square root of 3. And we can also write that as 8.7. All right, so we'll look at, so number 6, we're given the hypotenuse. So we know that the hypotenuse is always 2s. Well, we can set 2s equal to 32. So divide both sides by 2. So we know that our shortest side x is going to be 16. So once we have our shorter side, then we can find our longer side, which is going to be 16 times the square root of 3. All right, so what if we are given our longer side, like number 8? So number 8, we're given our longest side, so we know that it's 20. So to find our shorter side, we're going to take 20 divided by the square root of 3. Multiply that by the square root of 3. So we end up with 20 square root of 3 divided by 3. Or we can write that as 11.5. So then we need to double this to get our x value for our hypotenuse. So we just have to do 2 times 20 square root of 3 over 3, which is going to come out to 40 times the square root of 3 divided by 3. Or we can also write it as 23.1.